We're going to start the meeting now. Okay. Welcome to the Salt Lake City Planning Commission meeting on July 23rd, 2025. We have public meeting rules posted at the entrance to this room, or Section D of Planning Commission Policies and Procedures. So if you've made a comment on an item to a planner or to your community organization before this meeting, we have received those comments. If you want to make a comment this evening, please fill out one of the meeting comment cards that are available at the door, or you can send an email to planning.commission@slc.gov, and we'll read that into the record. We're going to have the roll call by the secretary now.
Commissioners, when I call your name, if you'll please indicate you're here. Amy Burrows.
Here.
Amy Berry.
Here.
Brian Scott.
Here.
Jeff Barrett.
Here.
Lila Rosenfield.
Here.
Mike Christensen.
Here.
Mike Vela.
Here.
Richard Leverett. Here. Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Report of the chair. I don't have anything to report, and the vice chair is not here today. Report of the planning director.
I have a little bit to read. Some updates on reading comments into the record when they come in the meeting. In our ongoing diligence to better serve the commission and the community, we are working on implementing changes to how we receive public input prior to the meeting. We will no longer be reading emails into the record. This was a holdover from COVID times and adds unnecessary length to the meeting. Our policies and procedures stipulate that public comments must be submitted by 12 p.m. on the Thursday before the meeting to be included in the official staff report. Comments submitted after this deadline will continue to be shared with the commission. However, please note that city staff, commissioners, and city attorneys may not have time to fully review or respond to late submissions. The final cutoff for submitting written comments will be 12 p.m. on the day of the meeting. Please let us know if you have any questions or concerns. So the intent is to update the policies and procedures to specify final deadline for written comments, 12 p.m. on the day of the meeting.
Comments in person, though, by people who are in attendance, part of the record still?
Yeah, in attendance will be still part of the record. They'll just have to give them themselves.
Thank you. Okay, now it's time for open forum. Does any of the commissioners have something to discuss?
I had a single item, and this is really for my fellow commissioners. When Arbery sent out the information about satisfying our yearly education requirement, for those of you who haven't done that yet, I would highly recommend the course. It's called Strong Towns 101. I didn't have any preconceived notions of what that would teach me, but I really had my eyes opened about what it does mean to have a strong town, just in terms of the differences between complex and complicated. The notion of what it costs a city over the course of time, first costs and ultimately second and third rebuild for utilities, the notion of vertical compression versus horizontal growth and how that affects towns. And so if you haven't done that, I would highly recommend it. It opened my eyes in a lot of different ways, and it was one of the best 4 hours that I spent. So,
thank you. I found those trainings to be really interesting too, about a lot of things. So maybe I'll do. Next is the consent agenda. We have 2 items on our consent agenda: a design review for Indy Station Apartments at approximately 60 North, 600 West, and the minutes for our meeting on July 9th. The thing that we can do with the consent agenda is approve everything on it or move something off of it. I'm going to open the public hearing for the design review for Indy Station Apartments. If anybody would like to speak on this item, you can approach the podium. Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing and ask for a motion from the commission.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Any second?
I second.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve the consent agenda by Commissioner Christensen and a second by Commissioner Rosenfield. Any activity on the motion? Okay, we'll vote. Commissioner Christensen,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
Yes.
Commissioner Leverett,
Yes.
Commissioner Barrett,
Yes.
Commissioner Rosenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Vela,
Yes.
Commissioner Barry.
No on the design review, yes on the minutes.
And I'll vote yes on both. Okay, so the consent agenda passes.
Point of procedure
Yeah,
is, can you vote no on a consent agenda item, or can you only request to have it moved off?
well, we've discussed this before, and we don't have specific rules about it, but if it came down to a consent agenda item was going to get more no's than yeses, we would just move it to the regular agenda.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Does that work? Okay. Okay, now we're on item number 4, which is design review, plan development, and preliminary plat at approximately 910 East, 400 South. Will you introduce yourself and tell us about this application? Thanks.
Good afternoon. Give me just a minute here to log in. Sorry. Thanks, Danette. Oh, it's okay, thanks. All right, there we go. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Olivia. I'm going to be presenting to you today a plan development, design review, and preliminary plat request for a proposed townhome development in the central community. I'll cover each of these requests in more detail later on, but just before I introduce you to the project, the applicant is requesting preliminary subdivision plat approval and plan development approval for the creation of new lots without public street frontage. Plan development approval for a reduction in the required side yard setbacks for building 2 and 3 along the east property line. A reduction in the required rear setback for building 3 on the south property line, and a 6-foot tall fence in a front yard. And design review approval for TSA scores below 125 points for the 3 buildings. An exemption from the required TSA district ground floor use along 400 South, and a reduction in the ground floor glazing and partial exemptions from the entrance requirements along 400 South and 900 East. Staff is recommending approval of the plan development, preliminary subdivision plat, and design review with a few minor conditions. Okay, so the proposed development you'll see outlined in red up on the screen. It's on the corner of 900 East and 400 South on the old Village Inn property. It's right next to the 400-500 South connector curve. It's surrounded by other TSA districts to the west, IHC campus to the north, and some medium-density residential zoning on the south and east. A few more details before we get into the request. This proposed development consists of 3 buildings containing a total of 20 attached single-family units with rear-loaded garages and rooftop decks. The buildings will be 4 stories and vary from about 32 feet to 45.5 feet in height. So first off, the preliminary subdivision plat. Preliminary plat approval is required for the creation of lots that do not directly front a public street. With that, you also have to go through the plan development process and meet those standards as well. So the applicant is requesting preliminary plat approval for those southernmost lots that will not front either 900 East or 400 South. Okay, so the plan development. The plan development request includes a Building 2 side setback reduction from 45 feet to 5 feet, a Building 3 side setback reduction from 32 feet to 5 feet, a Building 3 rear setback reduction from 32 feet to 17 feet, a 6-foot tall fence in a portion of a front yard along 400 South, and the lots without public street frontage. In order to be approved for a plan development request, an applicant must meet the purpose statement of a plan development, achieve at least one listed objective, demonstrate why modifications are necessary, and result in a more enhanced product than would be achievable through strict application of the zone standards. So the objective that this project meets is that it implements the master plan. You'll see on the right-hand side of the screen up here that it complies with the central community's future land use map, providing medium-density, transit-oriented development between 10 and 50 dwelling units. Additionally, this furthers one of the 3 goals outlined in Housing SLC. These townhomes are proposed to be ownership opportunities. One of our goals in Housing SLC is to increase opportunities for home ownership and other wealth and equity building opportunities. And you can see there's a few other initiatives from Plan Salt Lake that this also satisfies. Okay, so the setback reductions in the TSA district, let me make sure I get this right. So the required side and rear setbacks in the TSA UNT district are 25 feet when abutting RMF 35 zones, which this project is. There's an additional 1 foot increase in setback for every 1 foot of building height over 25 feet. So this results in a 45-foot setback for Building 2, as you can see up on the screen, and a 35-foot setback for Building 3 along that east property line. The required setbacks would reduce the development by at least 5 units. There's a similar regulation for the rear setback on Building 3, so that's why the setbacks are so large on this parcel. I do want to highlight the 2 properties to the east of this development are owned by UTA, and there's a powerhouse station on there. You can see this little building down in the corner. Those properties are not likely to develop. This has been sent to UTA, and we did not receive any comments from them on it. With those 2 parcels in place, the total separation between the proposed development and nearby RMF properties that are single-family housing is 54 feet. Additionally, I guess, on the south here, there's 35 feet required. The applicant is requesting 17 feet. This still allows for a 10-foot landscaping buffer between the proposed buildings and the multi-family building to the south. Okay, lots without street frontage, we covered this a little bit. This is required to provide ownership opportunities on this site. You can see all of these lots will still have vehicle and pedestrian access. The 6-foot-tall fence and gate, fence heights are restricted to 4 feet in front yards, anything in front of the front facade of a building. This project is proposing a 6-foot-high masonry fence right along 400 South between Building 1 and Building 2. This will include a pedestrian gate and some landscaping features to kind of soften that wall, but it is intended to kind of blend seamlessly in with the rest of the development. All right, on to the design review. Sorry for the long presentation here. The full design review request includes Planning Commission approval for TSA development scores of 77 for Building 1, 67 for Buildings 2 and 3. Exemption from the ground floor use requirement along 400 South. A reduction in the required ground floor glazing from 45% to approximately 22% on the front of Building 1, approximately 21% along the 400 South side of Building 1, and approximately 23% on the front of Building 2. And exemption from the entrance requirement where you are required to have an entrance every 40 feet for the north side of Building 1 along 400 South, and partial exemption from the entrance feature requirement along 900 East. So I'll show you guys what that means. Design review allows for modifications to the design standards outlined in 21A37 and is required for a modification of ground floor uses and required for TSA projects with scores below 125 points. So the ground floor use, the TSA district has a more enhanced ground floor use requirement along 400 South. It allows residential as an active ground floor use, but it asks that it satisfy these requirements up on the screen to eventually be converted to retail. These residential units have direct sidewalk entrances and entrances with a minimum 5-foot depth. They do not have a 12-foot ceiling height on the first floor. Now they're doing less than 60% glazing on street-facing facades, and they are not ADA accessible. The reduction in the ground floor glazing, 45% is required. Because these are residential uses on the ground floor and because of the historic leaning architectural style, the applicant is requesting 22% along 900 East on Building 1, 21% on that portion of Building 1 along 400 South, and 23% on Building 2, also along 400 South. The code requires that there is an entrance every 40 feet of building frontage. The applicant is requesting exemption. The street-facing side of Building 1 here along 400 South is a little over 47 feet long, and there's no entrance provided on that portion of the building. That would put 2 pedestrian entrances to the same unit, one on each side. It just isn't practical for the development. There is a pedestrian access in this gate right to the east of this building. Along with that, entrances facing public streets are required to have an entrance feature. One of the listed entrance feature options is a stoop at least 2 feet high, with awnings at least 5 feet deep. Well, these entrances along 900 East do have stoops at least 2 feet high. They do not have awnings. It doesn't match the architectural style. The applicant is requesting a partial exemption from that. All right, we made it through. So, public comments. Some of the things we heard while we were collecting outreach for this is a concern over the lack of green space in the central community, a desire for walkable right-of-ways in this area. The sidewalks can be quite treacherous. Concern over trash and utilities being screened, concern over the lack of guest parking spaces, and concern for construction impacts on nearby single-family residential. So next steps here, if this were to be approved, the applicant would comply with conditions of approval, meet all department comments through reviews, and bring any major modifications back to this board. And with a denial, the building would be required to meet the TSAUNT standards or MU5 standards later in the year. Development standards in 21A37 would need to be satisfied, and development reviews would be handled administratively. So again, staff is recommending approval of this proposal, the plan development, preliminary subdivision plat, and design review, with the conditions that the applicant submit a final plat for review within 18 months. The applicant submit a full lighting and signage plan at the building permit phase, and the applicant submit a cost estimate and associated documentation for shared infrastructure maintenance. And the applicant is here this afternoon as well.
Thank you. I want to do clarifying questions for staff right now. If you have a question, you can ask Ms. Svetko.
I have a single question, and is it Cassie?
Oh, no, Olivia.
Go to, I think it was like the third or fourth slide that you had, if you could go from this one, and it was a question concerning the interior roads.
Oh, sure.
And so I'm just concerned about, yeah, that one
Okay.
would work. For building 3, fire truck access, if they were to serve a building, 3, the second or third unit from the end, the fire truck would use the street that goes north and south. That's a hammerhead, back up to that, come out and go out.
Jared can probably address this in a little more detail. This project has been reviewed by the fire department, and the applicant and the fire department are currently working on an alternate means and methods plan that I believe includes sprinklers in building 3. But
second question I had was along 4 South. I know that the slope is such that the sidewalks don't meet ADA requirements. I get that. But I'm assuming that the sidewalks along 9th East do, and that going from the public access into the units in building 1, that can be satisfied if indeed the occupants of those buildings would be in wheelchairs and such. That's been satisfied?
The units in building 1 will not be ADA accessible. They have stairs and a stoop up to their primary entrance.
So none of the units will be accessible. Sorry, none of the units will be accessible, correct?
I do not believe so.
Thank you.
Any other clarifying questions right now for staff?
No, I don't have any more questions, but I'm concerned that
Okay,
there's
hold
not-
on. We'll do concerns in a minute. Right now, we're just doing questions, if that's okay? Okay, so make a note. Anybody else? Okay, we're going to have the applicant can come and speak to us. You have 10 minutes. Make sure you tell us who you are.
Hey, good evening, Commissioners. My name is Jared Hall. I'm the architect on the project, and this is Stephen Alfondre. He's with the ownership group. So, go ahead. I'll address your question. So, and I know you're an architect, so you kind of speak some of that lingo. In the Fair Housing Act and the IBC, when we're R3 occupants, 3-story townhomes are exempt from any accessibility requirements. So we are meeting the code, and these do not have accessibility.
Very good. Thank you.
Planning Commissioners, thanks for letting us come before you. My company is on a quest to provide more owner-occupied housing throughout the city. Unfortunately, we don't have many zones, any really good zones at all, to provide owner-occupied townhomes. Every single one we've come in for, we've had to ask for exceptions and variances. So here we are. We have tried to design these to look very attractive and timeless, that we think is a very important, prominent corner. We're trying to provide amenity spaces on top, and we're not even building to the height that we are allowed to go. So we feel we're providing something that the market wants in a great location that will encourage walkability with the transit stop right out front. And we're excited for this and hope you see the vision of what we're trying to do here.
So and I think with that, we'd just love to answer any questions you have for us.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move to the public hearing now. So would anybody like to speak about this project or this application? You can approach the microphone if you would like to. Okay, I will close the public hearing. And now this is an administrative item, which means that this body can approve this as recommended by staff. We can do an approval with additional conditions. We could deny this application, or we could continue it to another date, keeping open the public hearing or not. Now it's time for the Planning Commission to discuss. If you have specific questions for the staff, you can address them to. If you have questions for the applicant, let's address them to me first. Thanks.
So I have some questions regarding the exceptions we're asking for. One is, Olivia, my memory was serving me that the entrance requirements had kind of a basket of things they could pick from. You could pick this, you could pick that. I didn't realize awnings were like a requirement. Shouldn't it be that it's one of the things that could satisfy it?
Yes, so I looked at this one very closely because I initially thought the same. In that basket of items, there are many options, and one of them is the stoop requirement, that you include stoops at least 2 feet high, says stoops 2 feet high with an awning that's at least 5 feet deep.
Oh, so those two things go together,
They go together
as an option?
Yeah.
Understood.
Yes. So it's a bit of a nitpicky request.
Okay, no, I understand
yes, you're
now.
right.
Thank you. One of my other questions for you, Olivia, is so I just want to make sure I've got it right. The rear yard setback on Building 3 is the south side, correct?
That's right.
Okay, so in that setback in the code, is it stating that the required 32 feet also include a 10-foot landscape buffer?
No, there is a required 10-foot landscape buffer, though. So
in addition to the 5-foot?
No, it can be
setback?
satisfied within the setback.
Okay,
So it just asks that 10 feet of that be landscaping.
When it's abutting a different zone?
With certain zones, and RMF 35
RMF is one of
included
those?
in that.
Okay. And Chair, I have a question about the other exception on the wall that probably will include both staff and the applicant. Sure. Okay, so I'm not in favor of a 6-foot wall along 400 South, and I think one of the issues when you have a property such as this is you have multiple facing streets. You have 9th East and 4th South, so you've got front-facing streets on both sides. However, in the photo, the color photo, the rendering of what that shows the brick.
I can pull that up. There we are.
Yeah. Okay, so on this one, that wall looks like, say it's got 4 pillars. And I guess I want to kind of hone in on if there are ways in which to compromise on a design of a 6-foot wall. So if there were, say, 4 pillars, such as you see in this, and that in between there were wrought iron that you could see through, and the middle one was a gate, I feel that could be a doable compromise of why we don't want 6-foot walls on front yards. But if your goal is to make it solid, then I would not be in favor of the 6-foot wall. I would want it down to what code requires is 4 feet. So I guess one of my questions is, we can condition it that way, but if that is what your intention here is, because I can't really see beyond what this rendering is.
Thanks for that question. We want this to be a feature architecturally, and so we're very open to working in a way that will make it look beautiful and beautify it. We absolutely don't want to make it a flat wall
So then why are you asking for 6 feet?
because of the safety concerns. Being right at a track stop, we just feel that someone
Or
who's
access into that, well, we'll call it a walkway, but it's not, in between building 1 and 2?
correct.
Okay, but having parts of it be visible, like with wrought iron that you can see through so they're not solid, is something you're open to?
Yes.
Okay. Those were kind of based on your exceptions, what you were asking for, what I wanted to kind of get clarification on, so thank you. And I do want to just take a moment and be like, Jared, building 1 is really nice.
Thanks. We've worked really hard on it.
Good job.
It's
I like
beautiful.
the differing depths. That's something we don't see a lot, so I commend on that. I really think that's a really, really interesting feature, so.
I have a quick question for Olivia,
Sure.
which is just, I think that you said that the properties on 4th South immediately east are both owned by UTA, is that right? There's a property in the back that's like some kind of substation or powerhouse, you called it, but then the actual house on 4th South is UTA as well?
I may be able to answer this one. I may be able to answer this one.
Whomever.
Yes. So basically, many of the, when Trax was initially built, obviously substations needed to be constructed in order to provide electricity. When they were, UTA often purchased the entire property and then leased the existing single-family homes back to individual owners. But continues to lease those properties, I believe, through a property management firm. It's just, my understanding is that it's a lot easier than having to maintain a full easement and right-of-way for the maintenance technicians to access that essential component to the track system.
Can I comment?
Yes.
They've torn down the house on the front. They've demolished it, and it's now just an empty lot with a substation in the back. We've talked to them. They have zero plans of ever selling or doing anything with it. They have to have that substation there to provide additional electricity to get the tracks up the hill.
Okay. So the setback issue to that side effectively dematerializes given that, because there's not a property that's lived in immediately adjacent on the east.
That's right. Yeah, there is not. The closest home to the property, I believe, is about 60 feet away. Or not to the property, but the closest single-family home to the proposed building on the east side is roughly 60 feet away.
Thanks, that's helpful.
I would, so you said you spoke to UTA?
I didn't personally. Someone on our team has reached out to them, and we've had lots of discussions with them. We met them on site to see if we could use it as a staging area for construction. And we have a good relationship with UTA with all the transit we do, but they didn't want, they wanted to make sure that that equipment wasn't damaged, how important it was. Of course. So, Jared, I can't remember the last conversation we had with them.
Yeah, the conversation, we had tried to map a bunch of things. We've talked to them. They're just like, we're not doing anything with it. And you can maybe use it for construction staging as long as you don't harm any of our stuff, but that's.
But nobody raised concerns about needing a reasonable setback from that transformer substation?
No.
I know that those tend to be, they're high intensity. There's a lot of power running through them. So if there's anything that goes wrong, I would just hate to see that. But if the maintenance team at UTA is comfortable. I think that that's well within boundaries.
I also, I've sent the most recent plan set to UTA, a real estate team, and talked with them on the phone about 2 weeks ago. And they said they would reach out if they had any concerns. I haven't seen any yet.
Excellent. Thank you.
But they do have those most updated plans.
All right. With that sort of, I guess, more technical concern out of the way, I guess I'll jump up on my standard hobby horse, which is I worry about planned unit developments that turn residents into a sort of fortress. I would agree with the concern about the 6-foot tall wall. But just more broadly, I see this. I see a gate, is that correct, in front of the driveway. I see no way to sort of, no permeability in the structure. And then obviously that building number 3 is quite, the front entry, even though it's a back entry, right? Like the main entrance is opening onto a sidewalk, and then is there a wall between that property and the properties to the south? Chair, if you would like to ask the...
Yeah. Is there a wall there?
There will be a fence along the south property line, yes. There's a couple of feet of difference in grade.
Jared, could you speak into the microphone?
Yes, there will be a fence along the south property line.
So in terms of the front yard of that building 3, how much space is between the yard and the fence? Or between the building front door and the fence?
So there's 17 feet between the building and the fence on the ground level. The door is set back a couple of feet from that, so about 20 feet from the door to the fence. But then on level 2 and level 3, there is an outside deck on that side, so there's an additional almost 10 feet on the upper 2 levels.
Thank you. And then, of course, so if you look at the pedestrian pathing, and I think that this was on here somewhere.
Sorry, where was that slide? Oh, here it is.
Yeah, the pedestrian access, you actually have to cross that driveway in order to even get to building 3. So really it seems like the only meaningful way to act, like the design seems to me to be oriented, at least for building 3, very much towards an automotive approach, right? You're coming in, you're driving in your car, you're getting out in the garage, rather than folks who are necessarily walking from the station. And again, there's no life on the street in this internal alleyway, and I understand that it's private property, but the closure, and I think the applicant said it themselves, there's a safety concern that this is very close to downtown Salt Lake. Ultimately, we live with a sense of we know our neighbors, right? We're not just meeting people who are badging in. And I worry about a fence that would prevent people from, right, like create basically an impermeable threshold and create a very private domain among these 3 buildings that it almost entirely excludes the remaining community. So, with all of that said, I guess I would ask, what would it look like to potentially remove that fence entirely from the opening between building 1 and building 2, maybe create a more subtle division between the public and private realm?
Yeah. Do you want to address that?
Yeah, thank you for those concerns. We build townhomes and apartments all over the city, and theft is very, very real. We have people coming in, breaking into cars, sleeping in garages when people leave, and jumping in the back. And because this is owner-occupied, there's not an on-site management company at all times. With our apartment buildings, we still are adding security as much as we can, given the amount of people trying to break in, trying to come in, trying to enter our spaces. So if we were to remove that fence, these units would be very difficult to market. And we think, based on all the experience that we've had, is that's one of the reasons it's so hard to build owner-occupied housing. So what we've tried to do is not fence the entrances. If we were to fence the entrances on the street, that would feel like a fortress. but we actually give everybody a direct entrance onto the street except for Building 3. But the reason we have Building 3 not facing a street is because there is a lot of people, empty nesters in particular, who don't want the noise of the streets right there. So we think what this does on Building 3 is gives us a tremendous differentiated product for people who just want a little bit more quietness. We've talked about putting garden boxes in front of there that each community or each home will have their own garden box. As Jared said, there's 17 feet there that gives people some privacy. Well, they'll each have 2 outdoor decks. But your concerns are heard by us, and we try to orient all of our projects to promote as much walkability. But I know that if we remove that fence, it will make these extremely hard to sell.
Additionally, like along the 4th South frontage where we have Building 2, each one of those has a little private like outdoor space in that front setback area to try and help with that permeability, try and get people kind of inhabiting next to the sidewalk, developing those community aspects you're talking about. And I think the Building 1, the stoops on Building 1 will kind of be a very nice like brownstone kind of place to sit. And like, I feel this project is quite permeable with so many like it is the front door to 8 or 12 of the 20 units that is facing a street versus like an apartment building, you get like one front door for the whole project.
Thank you. I would also ask, so East Plaza or East Place, a little bit south, basically south beyond the properties to the south, is that a public right-of-way?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
So south of the property line, there's another row of buildings, and then south of that, there's a alleyway. Is that a publicly owned alleyway?
That is a great question. Give me just a minute here.
It appears to be a public alley.
Oh,
thank you.
Thank you, Casey.
Yeah, East Place. And then that goes into that sort of garaging structure for the building to the south, but there would be a fence because there's a grade, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. And then I guess my final question in terms of mitigating, the entryway exit on Building 1 on the 400 South face, would it be feasible to put in a side door for the garage in that building structure for that particular unit, just so that you would be in compliance with the standards? It would create a little bit more visual interest along that line. I wonder if the applicants would be willing to consider that.
We've studied that. We've looked at buildings in Chicago, Georgetown, and DC to try to get inspiration on this. And to fit a door going into the garage on 4th South, we just couldn't make it and feel comfortable with how it looked. That's really our answer. We know that it's required, and that's why we're asking for it not to be there. We already have windows there, which is tricky given that somebody could come right up to the window and break it in and get in. But we like formality and proportionality within all of our facades, and we didn't know how putting a door in, given that is one of the most visible corners, would work well for our project.
I had a question, and first off, I'll laud you for having 2 parking spaces for every unit. I think that's more than appropriate. I am a little bit concerned with 20 units and no visitor parking. There's precious little space on 9th East to park. I don't think visitors will cross 4th South to go park in Intermountain's parking, after hours kind of thing. So I'm really concerned about, on your side, visitors parking wherever they can, but it's not going to be anywhere close to this here, and I think that's a bit problematic.
If we could have visitor parking, I totally agree with you. I think we would prefer to have something a lot closer on 9th that would work. We're very comfortable with the market risk of people coming. We think that the trade-off of having tracks outside your front doorstep, people are willing to do that trade-off. In almost all of our projects, we try to find visitor parking, but in order to do that, we would have had to make some modifications that just wouldn't have worked for us.
Any consideration, you know, the street that you have, the interior street that you have running that east and west, at the far eastern edge of it, I think you have a green space that is there. Any possibility of introducing just a handful of parking at the end of that could hammerhead out and at least give you 3 or 4 parking spaces? Just
We did look at that. We're concerned how the HOA is going to handle that. If somebody buys that unit and there's people coming in, parking right there, we're not opposed to the HOA in the future deciding we'd like to convert these in. Just like the garden boxes, we want to leave some flexibility for them to make some decisions. But yeah, we absolutely looked at that.
very good. Thank you.
My concern is that there's a exception requested for a taller fence in the front yard and a reduction of ground floor use in this TSA zone where there is a track stop across the street. It seems like that those two things are a little bit much and make it a little bit separate from everything that's else is going on. I think that sometimes we're a little bummed how Fourth South has turned out. There could be more walkable, could be more friendly looking. And I think combining those two exceptions feels to me like a little bit too much. Anybody else want to say something? Or make a motion?
Do you have questions, or are you planning to make a motion?
Say something. No,
Go ahead.
No questions. So, I don't know. I might be in the minority here. I love the design of the building. I love the inspiration. I see the inspiration for it. I would actually be in favor of more protections on Fourth South. And it's not from a lack of walkability standpoint, but more of a safety standpoint when it comes to cars. And I'm thinking about, you know, I love townhomes and I've been shopping for them for 4 years, right? So I'm looking here, I'm like, oh, I love that corner unit, but I'm concerned about cars off 400 South. People driving fast and coming, and I would need 8-foot ballast to protect from street traffic and things like just errant accidents and things flying into that wall. That's what I'll be thinking about. So I would be in favor of a much bigger fence and protection for that along the side, maybe a garden along the side inside the fence. But I'm in favor of design and most things happening here. So that's what I want to say. That's all.
That was a concern also expressed by the community council for that neighborhood too.
Speaking of the community council, they had some comments about the sidewalk, and I don't know if I remember the exact nature of those, but the response either from staff or the owners had to do with the fact that Fourth South is a state street. I'm wondering if someone could unpack that issue a little bit for me, because I don't think that there were great pictures. I mean, I guess this one in front of us right now is as good a sense as we can get of that sidewalk, but what was the concern of the community council there?
Can I?
Yeah, go ahead.
So the 9th East sidewalk is actually in great shape, so it's not really a concern. It's mostly Fourth South. The Fourth South sidewalk is in really bad shape. There's 4-inch steps. The trees are in the middle of the sidewalk. The lights are right on the edge. It's nearly impossible to navigate. As part of the project, we'll be widening that sidewalk, like replacing the whole thing and widening it to 10 feet wide. So it'll be a much better sidewalk and a couple of extra street trees versus what is currently there. So I think it'll be a much better pedestrian experience than what is currently on Fourth South.
I walked that section for, admittedly, the first time, getting pictures of the site, and was shocked at the condition of that sidewalk.
And you would have to work with UDOT to make that happen, right? That sidewalk? Or, sorry. The applicants would have to work with UDOT to make that sidewalk happen, correct?
Is that true?
Technically, no. They're from the curb out. Salt Lake City is from the curb in.
Is there a difference? Did staff make that comment about it being a street owned by the state, so there was a different way to treat it? Do you know anything about that?
We didn't make that comment.
Okay. Okay.
It may have been in the community council's note, but
Right.
but if you're widening it going towards, I mean, that sounds good, because I'm looking at the sidewalk right now, and you're right, it's a mess.
I did want to bring up one thing to address your concern on the active ground floor use. Traditionally, through our design standards, residential living space counts as an active ground floor use, and using that measurement, this project would comply. It would actually have 96% active ground floor use along 400 South. But the TSA district has kind of specific requirements for just along 400 South and a couple other areas that just require that conversion ability to retail. So I just wanted to clarify that.
I feel like we've discussed that on a lot of projects, that if you're not going to put in retail or public use right now, it needs to be convertible to that. And that 12-foot high ceiling was one of the things we've discussed a lot of times. So your ceilings are 11 feet tall, but it is hard to imagine some of those units. And I'm talking about specifically on 4th South. That rule is specific for 4th South, right?
Right.
Right. So, I mean, that's a specific rule for this site, that as the rules were being made for what this big, important road was going to be like, we wanted it to be convertible, at least, to an active ground floor use if it's used as residential. I also think the buildings are beautiful, and I think they will look great there. I'm concerned that it's maybe too many exceptions for this street and this specific, the batch of rules that this specific lot has on it. Anybody else, or motion?
I'm willing to make a motion if there's no more discussion.
I would add a couple more things. So I actually think that this is an appropriate use for 4th South. I think that we are in desperate need of owner-occupied housing, and I understand that the current land use regime does not really make it particularly easy to have owner-occupied housing in combination with activated public ground floor uses. And as much as I would like to change that, I think that's something that's much bigger than the Planning Commission, and probably even bigger than the state regulatory regime, right? Like, that's the way America's land use works. And it's unfortunate, but I'm not sure that we're going to be able to enforce a change through our zoning codes. And given the way the building looks, I think, I want to support this project in some way. And I think, again, I go back to my concerns about fortress, the sense of fortressing, the pedestrian access issue on the vehicle access way, and then the height of the fence. And I wonder if there is a package of requirements that we would be able to request or that we would be able to craft as a planning commission that would be copacetic with what the landowners, what the applicants are able to do and what the market is able to bear, that maybe reduces some of those exceptions while maintaining the integrity of the project concept as a whole, which again, I really like and really want to support. So the three that I would recommend, first of all, swapping the location of the pedestrian access and the vehicle access, shortening the fence to 5 feet at maximum on 4th South, and then potentially the placing a garage door on, or a door into the garage for Unit A on Building 1 facing 4th South to add visual interest.
I think that the changing the fence requirement would be part of the plan development request. I don't know where the other two, because we have 3 things to approve, so I'm not, do you know which the other 2 would be?
Let me pull up my motion sheet.
They would all be part of the design review.
Yes, that's right.
They
The
are?
design review request.
The fence is listed under plan development.
The fence would be for the plan development. The entrance every 40 feet would be design review. And what was the third? I'm sorry. Switching the.
Yeah, this is the slightly. Can you pull up the image of the pedestrian access into the interior of the site?
Sorry if anyone's getting whiplash from this.
There we go. So the lower blue line and the orange line, I would swap them so that you have a continuous pedestrian movement without having to cross that driveway to get to building number 3.
Can I ask if Olivia, do you think that that's possible? Is there like a curb cut there for the vehicle access that won't allow the pedestrian and vehicle to switch on 9th East? The reason why those can't switch, or you can ask your applicant too?
I'm not. I think I'll leave that one up to you guys. I believe this is a new curb cut. Is that right?
Oh, it's a new curb.
So
Or at least a moved curb cut.
we are moving the curb cut further south. Generally, and this is not a UDOT road, but generally getting those vehicle access points as far as possible from the major intersections is the best sort of traffic engineering approach. And so that's why we're trying to keep that vehicle access as far south as we possibly can. But that said, it could go north. It would just get closer to the intersection.
Okay.
Well, I'm willing to try it for a motion. We'll see how it goes. Oh, good? Okay. All right, so this is for motion PLN PCM 2025-00454 for the design review for 910 East, 400 South. Based on the information presented and discussion, I move that the commission approve this design review application as recommended by staff with the following conditions. 1, the lighting and signage plan shall be submitted for review at the building permit phase. And 2, that the pedestrian and vehicle access along 9th East be transposed to allow for continuous pedestrian access flow into the site. The fence would be for the plan development. So.
That would not include the door for the garage.
I'm actually not concerned about the door for the garage, but so I wouldn't include that. But if you wanted to make a substitute motion and see if other people agree with that part, that's up to you.
I would make a substitute motion.
Well. Procedurally, it has to be seconded first.
My apologies.
That's
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Berry to approve the design review with one additional condition than was listed in the staff's recommendation. Do we have a second for that?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion by Berry and a second by Christensen. Does anybody want to suggest a friendly amendment or do a substitute motion?
I will make a substitute motion that includes the full.
You have to do the whole motion.
Okay,
from
cool,
the beginning.
great. So I move that for PLN PCM 2025-00454 design review for 910 East 400 South townhomes, that based on the information presented and discussion, the commission approved the design review application as recommended by the staff with the following conditions. Lighting and signage plans shall be submitted for review at the building permit phase, and additionally, the following conditions: that the pedestrian access and the vehicle access on 900 East be inverted so that there's a continuous flow between the sidewalk and building 3, and that a doorway be added on the 400 South facing side of Unit A to access the garage of that unit.
Thank you. So we have a second to the substitute motion? I don't see one. Okay. We'll consider the original motion by Commissioner Berry, unless there's more activity. Okay. We'll vote now. Commissioner Berry.
Yes.
Commissioner Bela.
No.
Commissioner Rosenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Barrett,
Yes.
Commissioner Leverett,
Yes.
Commissioner Scott,
No.
Commissioner Christensen,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. That's 6 yeses and 2 nos. So the design review is approved with the conditions as recommended and 1 additional condition. Okay, we have 2 more items to take up.
I'll take the next one too. We'll stab at it again. This would be for PLN PCM 2025-00455, plan development for 910 East, 400 South Townhomes. Based on the information presented and discussion, I move that the commission approve this plan development application as recommended by staff with the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall submit a cost estimate and associated documentation assured shared infrastructure maintenance and compliance, blah, blah. 2, the commission should list the conditions, oh, whoops, that's me. 2, that the fence along 400 South, if goes to 6 feet, must include see-through features so that it is not a solid wall. Otherwise, it needs to be what code requires at 4 feet only.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Berry and a second by Commissioner Christensen. Any activity on that motion? Okay.
Can there be discussion or to the motion, or
What?
can there be discussion to the motion?
Yeah, let's discuss it.
Well, just looking at the image that's in front of us, it appears that that condition's already met. To my eye, it looks like the solid masonry wall is only about 50% of the total span. And then in the image shown here, you can see that there are, in a different image, the streetscape image, it appears that there are iron gates, one of which appears to be operable and connected to a sidewalk, and the other of which appears to not be operable and to just allow visibility through into the site.
So my response to that, Commissioner Barrett, is I agree that that's what that looks like. If we do not condition it to look that way, based on the exception, it could be a 6-foot solid masonry wall in the end. If we don't want to see that, that's why we have to condition it that way. Because I like how that looks. I can't quite see it from a full face-on view, but based on past experiences. That's why I wanted to really spell that out.
In that case, I don't recall if you have a second or not, but if you don't, I'd be happy to second
That's
your motion.
the second. All right. Thank you. All right. We'll vote now. Let's start with Brian Scott.
Yes.
Sorry, Commissioner Scott. Commissioner Leverett.
Yes.
Commissioner Rosenfield.
Yes.
Commissioner Berry.
Wait.
Whoa.
Are you Commissioner Rosenfield?
Oh, wait,
now?
no, sorry. Sorry. Commissioner Rosenfield. No. Commissioner Berry.
Yes.
Commissioner Barrett.
Yes.
Commissioner Vela.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Christensen.
Yes.
And I also vote yes. So that's 7 yeses and 1 no for the plan development with the recommended conditions plus 1 additional.
I'd like to make a motion for PLN SUB 2025-00453. Based on the information presented and discussion, I move that the commission approve this preliminary subdivision application as recommended by staff with the following condition. Applicant shall submit a final plat for review within 18 months.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Christensen, a second by Commissioner Rosenfield. Any discussion or activity on that? Okay, let's start voting with Commissioner Leverett.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Rosenfield.
Yes.
Commissioner Berry.
Yes.
Commissioner Scott.
Yes.
Commissioner Barrett.
Yes.
Commissioner Vela.
Yes.
Vela. Sorry. Commissioner Christensen,
Yes.
and I will also vote yes. So the planned subdivision is also approved. So it looks like everything you requested with a opening to your fence and switched pedestrian and vehicle access on that one street. So great.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll look forward to this being built. Okay, our next item is plan development and preliminary subdivision for Kerrigan View Phase 2 at approximately 1995 South Lakeline Drive, also on Scenic Drive, also on Kerrigan Canyon. If anyone wishes to speak on this item, will you please fill out a comment card and hand it to one of us so that we can line you up? Not really. Not.
Here you go.
Yep, members of the commission, my name's Eric Dames, and I'm presenting the Kerrigan View Phase 2 Plan Development and Preliminary Subdivision. There are a few requests with this, 3 requests to the plan development. First and foremost, there's 4 residential lots that do not face a public street, similar to the last request. Lot 3 is 50 feet wide, where 100 feet width would be required by the zone, and the private road would include construction across man-made slopes that exceed 30%. And then with this is the preliminary subdivision that goes along with that request to create the underlying plat. Staff is recommending approval of both the plan development and preliminary subdivision with the conditions that are indicated in your staff report related to replacing the shoreline trail north of Kerrigan Rim Court, the private road, installing a fence between the private road and the trail that's indicated there, and allowing those retaining walls and necessary grading again to create this project, and that any areas disturbed by the construction be revegetated with native plants. So this is indicating the location here at the top of Lakeline Drive, spanning both sides of the road and stretching nearly down to Scenic Drive. Just a view of some of that property on the bench there from the different directions. And it encompasses a number of properties, but it's at approximately 1820 South Lakeline. There's 2 zones here, the FR2 zone and open space, and the request for the residential lots all falls within the FR2 space, and the open space, of course, is that is proposed as public open space, all falls within the open space area, with the exception of lot 6, which I'll show you more clearly, that would become a future public, is envisioned as a future public amenity. But in total, there's 5 residential lots for single-family homes, and the future area for trailhead parking and small amenities. And through the subdivision process, they would be dedicating this section of the Bonneville Shoreline Trail, an easement for that, which is currently running through private property and does not have a dedicated easement. So you may recall, some of the commissioners that were here last year, this came before you last summer, and this shows the previous iteration. There was only 3 lots in the last one, these lots 1, 2, and 3, but they were requesting slope exceptions. They had buildable areas that exceeded a 30% slope. There was still the easement for the shoreline trail. There was space for the future trailhead, but it was going to be a little bit larger, potentially spanning on both sides of the shoreline trail and the private road. They proposed 12 acres of public open space, and then they had 20 acres of private open space. And the neighborhood connecting trails would not have necessarily been preserved by easements. So in contrast, this proposal now, first and foremost, encompasses more land further to the east on the other side of Lakeline Drive. It does propose these 2 additional residential lots, and it does not have any lots that have the slopes over 30%. Those have been revised. And again, it still preserves the shoreline trail, still has lot 6 right here would be for a future trailhead space is what it's envisioned for. And all of the green area becomes public open space, which allows for the neighborhood trails to be preserved. It's anticipated that this, the land in green would be sold to Salt Lake Public Lands, and this preliminary plat and plan development would allow for that process to proceed, which is very far along the line, along the process. So looking at the plan development, first and foremost, of course, they must meet the purpose statement of a plan development and those standards. They've got to achieve at least one objective and provide a more enhanced product than would be allowed in the FR2 zoning district alone if they followed those standards alone. This project does all of those things, and it includes planned development objectives in 2 areas, one for open space and natural lands through this preservation and protection of the large open space, public open space, and then it implements quite a few goals from the master plan, both, Plan Salt Lake, the East Bench Master Plan as well, that talk about the natural environment, preservation of foothill trails, and preservation of open space. And those are more clearly outlined in your staff report. In looking at this, this project would not be possible without the creation of a private road, as the lots would basically be inaccessible. So the road does become necessary, and it would follow a waterline easement. The flattest portion right there is the most obvious choice, as there are some steep hills, especially on the upslope. But you can see here, this is a slope map showing where these lots, these residential lots would be on here, and how their buildable areas fit into the slopes less than 30%. And it does cluster the development in ways that best preserves the open space, again, while still being on the residential portions of the property. And, as these would be tucked into the hillside, and the lots 1 through 3 are below the trail, and so it does the best possible to preserve views and open space. And with the roadway and the preservation, the trail easement, it does preserve access all throughout the property. In looking at the preliminary subdivision, there are obviously standards associated with that, and it's been found to meet each of those so long as it gets this, and so long as it were granted the plan development approval to be accessed from a private road. And this private street would serve several purposes. It would obviously provide access to each of the lots, but, and I'll pull up another exhibit here in a minute, but it also, basically the public would be granted access from the end of Lakeline Drive through Lot 6. So the public could access that private road, pull into Lot 6 for a future envisioned but not yet funded trailhead and parking area. And then there would be a gate across the road that would only allow residents or guests of lots 1, 2, and 3 to proceed into the end of the cul-de-sac. And at that point, the trail would move to the upslope and continue on the north side of the road. There's also a large water line easement through this property, and the water line was actually not built within that easement, and so this plat would correct that and help shift it so Salt Lake City would get an easement over where the actual water line exists and help with maintenance, and if there was emergency situations, things like that, they would be much better access than they technically have at the moment on the private land. This shows a little bit how that trail, so the Bonneville Shoreline Trail easement would come in here, and again, people would be able to either ride bikes, pull in cars, or walk from the end of Lakeline Drive through here, pull into Lot 6, and the design of that would be at a future time. But and then they would cross the street and again continue on their way towards the H-Rock. But again, this is really the first step in allowing for the sale of land to go through to Salt Lake Public Lands, dedicating it as public open space, dedicating the trail easement. But throughout this process, we would continue to review the subdivision. There is public concern, one, of the preservation of these areas, and again, this would be the step that would allow that to take place and ensure that it does take place and there's public access. But also public has been a little concerned on the environmental controls, and again, this one revises, so they're not violating the slope side development standards, and so this would go through final subdivision and construction plans that would be all reviewed to make sure that each of the environmental concerns was addressed and to city standards. So you obviously have a handful of options with this. Approval would mean that they would have to comply with any conditions that were set in the staff report or by the commission, and they would continue on to those various review cycles. Any major modifications would need to come back to you. Denial, they would still be able to develop on the residential portions, and but they just couldn't modify any of the standards. They could not have the private road, so that would create some unique challenges of how to access this property. And the open space land would not necessarily need to be dedicated. In creating a subdivision, it is now a requirement, they would still need to dedicate the shoreline trail easement, but none of the other land. Because that's now a requirement when you create a subdivision to dedicate any identified trails. But all development reviews would be handled administratively and wouldn't come back to you, and it would be unlikely there would be any kind of future trailhead amenities or parking area. So again, staff is recommending approval on both the plan development and preliminary subdivision. And I'm happy to take any questions.
Yes, let's ask clarifying questions of staff right now. And my question is on the plan development, construction across 30% grade is one of the exceptions that they're asking for. Does that mean, I thought we were leaving out all of the greater than 30% So tell
So
me what that means.
when we installed the water line, we did some grading and created downslope. So we're talking several feet of man-made slopes just because they made the road flat. And so they've created small slopes, generally no more than about 4 feet tall, that are, they're going to need to construct across those.
Okay.
And currently our code doesn't differentiate between man-made or otherwise. And so there's no buildable areas across natural slopes. We're just saying, well, the new road's going to be a little wider. They're going to have to construct that. They're going to have to dig it up and rebuild it differently.
And this would additionally would let them build on any additional 30% slopes that are created by fixing that road? Because they're moving the road? I mean,
Now, the road would go back in the same place. They just have to physically do construction. So it's approximately the same width and everything.
Okay.
That exception would be necessary based on the letter of the law and the code.
Okay. And then the buildable areas of each lot are defined by the map, like the dotted
And
line
the
defines
subdivision
those.
plat.
Okay.
So the subdivision plat determines those, and so once those are set with subdivision, they can't move.
Okay.
And they wouldn't be allowed to go beyond the 30% without coming to this body regardless.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions for
I have a
staff
quick
right now?
one. Eric, exactly where is this fence going to be located? Past Lot 3 or along Lot 3?
Yeah,
or-
so if you can see my cursor here, so once the trail crosses the street, then right here, since they would have a gate, an access gate to get into the end of the cul-de-sac, the trail would come on here on the north side, and so I'm asking for a fence to be located here so the public
Oh,
isn't
right
walking.
past north of Lot
Exactly,
4 or 6?
Yeah.
6.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
So it looks to me, actually, if we could stay on this one, that only I guess that would be southern half of the road center line would actually be eased to the public around Lot 6? Yes. Is that correct?
Yes, so there would be an easement that would allow, let's see if I've got another one that shows that. Okay, so this one actually here. So there's they would be able to go on the, like vehicles. There's a lot of layers on this of what the different easements are because there's the easement for the shoreline trail. There's access on the private street to drive into and out of Lot 6. And then there's also a water line easement. So in the submitted materials, you'll actually see there's a bunch of different layers, but they would be able to drive over or bike over the full width of the road through Lot 6.
So what is the component that only goes up to the center line?
That's technically the trail easement. And so that's just defining two different things because they're required a minimum 20-foot easement for the trail. And so it's just indicating the trail is technically not on the other side, but there's a different public access easement for the whole width of the road to get in and out of Lot 6.
So there's a full width driving easement and a half width trail easement.
Yes.
Okay. And last clarifying question, and thank you for your patience. Would the trail just be the asphalt? There would be no secondary, like multi-shared use path or any other sort of?
So that's probably beyond the scope of this meeting. They're in talks with Public Works, Public Lands. So if this goes through, Public Lands purchases this. Who installs that? If that becomes what the design of Lot 6 is, whether it's a parking lot and now there's a sidewalk that leads to this portion where it cuts across, or it's asphalt or something or other, that has not been determined, the exact design. The staff report just says you got to have a trail in there. Figure that out. Again, it's not part of the plan development request. It's not part of a subdivision requirement. So we're merely saying the trail's got to be there, and they're going to have to figure out this specific design. And if Lot 6 were to develop as this trailhead amenity, a public space is likely going to be coming before you again and be discussed. So.
Thank you.
You said a couple of things that suggested it was a foregone conclusion that public lands would buy.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that very well.
You've said a couple of things that suggested to me that it was a foregone conclusion that public lands will buy these parcels.
It's anticipated they will. They're working on a contract, so yeah, it's advanced. But yeah, it's anticipated. This approval would be despite that. I mean, would still require the dedication of public open space, things like that. And if that sale goes through, obviously that facilitates everything. But that's what it's anticipated to do, is set this up for that.
So all the parts drawn in green on that one map, are they already open space? Or
They're zoned to open space, but they're private land.
Right.
So they're not public open space.
Okay.
I have one more question I forgot to ask. So I noticed that streets did not comment on the department reviews, and so what's the role of monitoring, like who decides like that street meets the specifications of the city if it's a private road?
Yeah, transportation does not review public streets in that regard. So they'll look at general widths, and the fire department will look at fire department access, but they don't have to be built to certain standards of a city street as far as width or cross sections.
Okay, thanks.
So lot 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 will be zoned foothill residential?
They are zoned foothill residential currently.
Already?
Yes.
And all the other parcels are already open space?
Lot 6 is also zoned
Okay.
FR2,
Okay,
but everything else is open space, zoned.
thank you.
As a quick follow-on to that question, in your enumeration of sort of denial outcomes, you said that it could still be developed to current, to the current zoning standards. If we were to deny this, what would that look like? You obviously,
Realistically, they'd probably have to come back to you, because I don't know any other way that property would be accessed for lots 1, 2, and 3. So in principle, yes, they could develop it according to that, but maybe very oddly shaped lots, something or other, but in practicality,
maybe they could just do the other two lots. Could they access the other two lots? The 4 and 5?
Potentially, it would depend how they're drawn. For sure, the 1 touches the cul-de-sac, but lot 6 obviously still would. So, I mean, it'd be a very different product. But again, there wouldn't be a trailhead amenity, and there wouldn't be requirement for any public open space.
Do you feel okay with the flag lot for lot number 3 because all the surrounding is open space?
Yeah, and FR2, it's still 50 feet wide. The FR2 is exceptionally wide,
Yeah.
of 100 feet. And that really is for them to also be able to take advantage of how to get a driveway down to it. So it's not like it's flat land. They could just draw typical pie-shaped things at the end of a cul-de-sac.
Right.
It just wouldn't work physically.
Thank you. Any other questions for staff right now? Okay, let's have our applicant can come do a presentation or talk to us. Tell us your name, and you'll have 10 minutes to speak if you want to.
Good evening, and thanks for having me. Yeah, I think we've gone through a few iterations of this project, and this has been a long and thorough conversation, primarily with the planning department, but primarily with Salt Lake City Public Lands. And the ways in which we've tweaked this from the last time we were here and the last time we presented, we received certain approvals which would have, as Eric mentioned, established a trailhead for the Bonneville Shoreline Trail. And actually, what happened though throughout that process and throughout the approval process when we were here was that we, heard from community members, Public Lands heard from community members about these adjacent trails, particularly this one that was recently constructed on Lakeline Drive that you see there on the right-hand side. That's the connector, that's the Bonneville Shoreline Trail connection to Parley's Canyon, which I think somewhat inadvertently, but was actually constructed partially on land that we own without an easement and without our knowledge. So that portion was not included, and Salt Lake City Public Lands expressed that they did not have funding or budget for any of the remaining open space. So what we did in the meantime, in coordination with them, was reduce the amount of FR2 zoned land that they are planning to purchase and drastically increased the amount of open space land that they plan to purchase in order to disentangle kind of the private land from the public use in this Bonneville Shoreline Trail connection there on Lakeline Drive, as well as a trail that comes up from Scenic Drive that you can actually see on this last slide there, popular trail that comes up from Scenic Circle, I should say, to connect to the Bonneville Shoreline Trail. So as Eric mentioned, those properties would have remained private and would likely have been part of an HOA and likely cut off from public access. So that's how we came to this proposal here, which I think greatly benefits the public and Salt Lake City Public Lands through the preservation of, instead of 12 acres of open space, over 32 acres of open space. And instead of just focusing on the Bonneville Shoreline Trail from Lakeline Drive to the H-Rock, this now takes into account many of these other connector trails that make this area possible. And I would just say the last comment is that many of you probably remember, but kind of the thrust of this conversation with Salt Lake City Public Lands relies around the increase in popularity of this trail, which has resulted in a lot of on-street parking at the end of Lakeline Drive in a cul-de-sac with a bunch of no parking signs at the end of the cul-de-sac, right? And so neighbors and others in the area have, we've kind of been trying to figure out the best way to do this, and providing Lot 6 to Salt Lake City Public Lands through a sale allows, as Eric mentioned, in a future plan to come from Salt Lake City Public Lands, allows for off-street parking and other trailhead development opportunities there. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Does anyone have any clarifying questions for the applicant right now?
For the record, can the applicant please state his name?
Sorry about that. My name is Adam Turville.
I have a question for either one of you could answer this. Who owns this lot right here where the pink line goes through it that's not green? Who owns that?
Sorry, I'm not.
Do you know, Eric?
This over here.
Over there? I think there's a sliver. So I think there's a sliver. There's a little gully there. And there's a sliver that goes up that I believe Salt Lake City owns, right there where Eric's mouse is. Yeah. And then the next house is a residential lot down the street a little bit.
So maybe the part of the Bonneville Shoreline Trail that's not in the green, which is anticipated to be sold to the city, is on public land? You think? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? Okay. I'm going to open the public hearing. I have one comment card. If anyone else wishes to speak, you can line up after Jerry is going to speak first on this. You'll have 2 minutes, unless you're speaking for the East Bench Community Council.
Unless I'm what?
Or unless you're from the East Bench Community Council.
I'll cover that.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Jerry Burgosh. I live at 1961 South Scenic Drive, and I'm going to read my notes to try and stay within that 2 minutes. I have a long and informed history with the H-Rock hillside, known as the East Bench Preserve. I'm moving into the neighborhood in 1984. I was chair of the H-Rock Neighborhood Council. I was a participant in drafting the Salt Lake City 30% slope ordinance. I was a representative to the 1998 Arcadia H-Rock Small Area Master Plan, which was a one-year effort. And I was chair of the East Bench Community Council for 10 years. I know this property really well. I was also the organizer from 2005 to 2007 in raising the $1.4 million to purchase the East Bench Preserve. And we did that through the state, the city, and the county by raising those funds and working with the landowner to get a conservation easement. 20 plus years ago, myself and many other members of the community council met face to face with the private landowners who wished to develop the H-Rock hillside. That included Mr. Shar, Mr. Allen, Mr. Williamson, and of course Scott Turville. We were never able to come to a deal with Scott Turville, which I think you need to keep in mind for the future of this development and how it proceeds. I have several concerns about the latest Turville proposal and the staff report. Trying to keep in the time limit, I'll pose them as questions. The staff report states there is a proposal to sell 20 acres of Salt Lake and Lot 6 for a trailhead parking. This is a direct quote. If the sale takes place. In the past, we've never been able to do it. And the $7 million, I wonder, the city really has it. If the sale doesn't go through, what is the ramifications to the neighborhood and the community if this development goes through without the open space? The 30% slope issue, I dispute these man-made locations. I'm a registered professional geologist here in the city of Utah. If you look uphill from the
That's time.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to speak on this item? Go ahead, state your name, and then you'll have 2 minutes.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Barrows. I am a resident 2119 South Lakeline Drive, so that's one of the houses that's land actually abuts the Shoreline Trail further along. And I just want to say that when that trail was being created, the people with private property were very much in discussion with private land, so it is surprising that they were not, the trail ended up on private land without them knowing, because this was something that was very deeply discussed. As well, I always want to remind people that there are amenities to the trail network. There is a small park on the east side of lot number 5. It has water as well as some seating. Yes, it is insufficient to how popular the trail network is, but that is another way we could go about things, is expanding that. And then the other thing is the road itself is very important that it be fire safe. Obviously, that is something that the fire department would look into, but just reminding that that hillside is a bit of a tinderbox that is problematic. And then the last moment is, with the trail amenities, again, are being promised, but aren't necessarily in the actual amendments. Again, the funding needs to be found. This easement and these things being promised to the community have been promised for since I was an infant, and my mother was a commissioner on this meeting. There was talk of this easement being put in, and it was supposed to be recorded then, and I think it was supposed to be recorded in 2007.
That's time.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this item? No, you can just tell us your name, and you'll have 2 minutes.
My name's Dan Chase. I live in the area. Just one thing.
Get right up in the microphone.
My name's Dan Chase. I live in the area. One thing that I wanted to clarify, because I see on a public database map, Onyx, that the Bonneville Shoreline Trail does not actually traverse that parcel that's up there. It exists primarily on public land. I don't know if what I look at is correct, but I just wanted to introduce that as a possibility. It looks like on that part on the right that I'm discussing, right, that was added to the plan. It just looks different from what I see. It's primarily, yeah, exactly. It doesn't trace that green area from what I can see on public data. Just wanted to add that to the conversation.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this item? Okay, I'll close the public hearing. I wanted to note that we have a public comment from the East Bench Community Council in the materials, so that's part of the record. Okay, if I didn't yet, I'm closing the public hearing. I want to give you 5 minutes to respond to the comments, so let me tell you what they were that I wrote down. What will happen? Well, maybe staff can address this. What will happen if the sale of that property doesn't happen? If it remains privately owned open space? Tell us about like what the trail easement will happen and that kind of stuff. And then have you defined the man-made slopes that are over 30% that are allowed to be crossed for construction? Is that drawn out on a map anywhere? And then if you can also address the concern that maybe the Bonneville Shoreline Trail doesn't follow that one really weird shaped parcel.
Sure. So first and foremost, the planned development would be all-encompassing of the residential and the public open space. So they couldn't develop the residential without the public open space. Now, whether Salt Lake Public Lands purchased that, the planned development's good for a year. They could continue to work out those terms. Again, we're being told they're very soon to be completed, but regardless, that is the condition of this approval, so it couldn't go forward. They couldn't start building residential or doing anything if this isn't also public open space and the shoreline trail's not dedicated. So there isn't fear of any development. If this approval goes through, there's no fear of development without the other components going through. As far as the man-made slopes, so we have that slope map. That'll be considered more when they submit final plat and for construction permits. Those will be looked at more closely. These are flown with LiDAR radars to determine those exact slopes. So the, within a foot or whatever placement of the road is going to be determined as those construction drawings continue to come out and see exactly where it needs to cross. That it's also based on, the easements that Public Utilities is laying down for all the different utilities through the road. So those are not typically, at this point, we would, typically review that needs to be done, but that level of fine detail within a few inches or feet would be determined in final plat and construction drawings. As far as the map, this image here that was shown is a bird's eye aerial. It's not exact to property lines. Exactly right here is drawn. That's not a surveyed thing. So it is very well that the top of that could be right outside of there. And those trails also, any of the aerials aren't going to be exact due to the slopes. So it's until they're exactly surveyed whether that trail follows exactly in there or not. I'm not sure, but we do know that the trail lower here for sure crosses into the property, and exactly where is not surveyed.
Thank you. You have 5 minutes now if you want to address some things you heard.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. I would address maybe first, as I'm just thinking off the top of my head, the history with this project. Yeah, my dad purchased this project in the late 90s. Shortly thereafter, it was annexed into Salt Lake City with an agreement that this would become a residential development and some combination of open space. That's where the zoning boundaries that you see now, that's when they were established. That was 20 plus years ago. He received plat approval actually for a subdivision which was never recorded. He passed away a couple of months ago, actually, of a neurodegenerative disease that he battled for about 15 years, which is why this has been a long process, because he didn't touch this property or that approved plat that he could have recorded and didn't touch that for about 15 to 20 years. So that's why we're here again, right? I've kind of picked up the baton with a hope to bring a good compromise to the table that meets the Salt Lake City Public Lands budget and what their aims are, as well as to develop this and, as I said, disentangle kind of the private land from the public use. As to the trail, there were a few questions about the trail. We, as part of the grading plan, well, let me mention, Eric touched on this as well, but the 30% exception that we're requesting is only for the road. Whereas last time when we came in for approvals, we were also requesting an additional exception for the buildable areas of the homes. We're not making that request any longer. So the 30% exception is just for those small red areas that Eric is circling that are just on that kind of bottleneck area of the road there. Yeah, and I would just say, I don't know, unclear where the numbers like $7 million and things like that come from. Our agreement with Salt Lake City Public Lands, in full transparency, is we've signed a term sheet. We're really close to finalizing a contract, and that would be for $1.75 million. $1.3 million of that would come from a grant from the state, which I've coordinated with Salt Lake City Public Lands on getting that grant. And you know, I understand the city has limited budget, which is why we've kind of recrafted this proposal to fit within their budget and kind of maximize the amount of public open space given that budget. So yeah, once again, I think it's a good compromise. It's been a long time coming. I think it would serve the community well. The East Bench Community Council has voiced their kind of repeated support for this, as well as other neighbors in the area. So
Thank you. Anybody? Now we're going to go into executive session. So go ahead and discuss.
People are looking at me. So I guess, you know, this in general, I think that this proposal, I want to thank the planning staff and the open land staff for the work that they've done here. Clearly, there's a lot of nuances going on, and I think that folks have really made an effort to try and drill into them and figure out the best approach. That said, you know, I'm going to raise it. The thing that I always raise, which is it worries me to have a private street, right? The street historically is the domain of the public, and maybe I am misunderstanding the code, but is it correct to understand that there would basically be no way to make this, to incorporate the street, like have the applicant construct the street and then hand it over into public hands so that we actually have more public right-of-way and people aren't closing themselves off from their communities?
So one, it's private land, so it's not being proposed as that. And two, whether this could meet the standards for the width of and the typologies for a public road would be questionable. And additionally, it's not indicated in any transportation plans as being a road. So typically, you know, even then the city would have to consider whether they'd be willing to accept a road that's outside of their planned roads. So.
And was there discussion of including the full length of the road in the trail easement?
No, because it in that sense it wouldn't serve a public benefit because it would go beyond where the city would like to install a parking area, and so it would just increase the cost, more land needed, and more infrastructure that we'd have to pay for down the line.
Great, thank you.
I'm satisfied with the answer that the plan development includes the public open space and the development of this. Like nothing's going to happen until it all happens, which makes sense to me. And I also accept your explanation that the man-made, the slopes that they can put their road on will be defined specifically at the time that subdivision or final plat is drawn. So I feel comfortable with those two things. That's it. That's it for me. Anybody want to make a motion? or-
I have just a quick thought. You don't list a condition on the motion regarding the filing of the easements.
So the easements, right, because those now are part of the subdivision code in the most recent.
Including the trail?
Yes.
Oh,
So that's
Since
a
when?
change that since, was it early this spring or early January? I guess it was, yeah.
Okay.
So that's a new modification that when a trail is indicated in master plans and it's a part of a proposed subdivision, they've got to be an easement's got to be recorded. So that portion is now brought in under the subdivision, so it doesn't need a separate.
understood. Okay, thank you.
I have a clarifying question. What does the sale of the land already designated open space have to do with the entire deal? Just from a conceptual standpoint.
Yeah, from our standpoint, if the land is not sold to Salt Lake City, it remains private land, part of the HOA. So the HOA, I think those who have worked on the Bonneville Shoreline Trail are familiar with other HOAs in the area where they've got more space than just the lots that the homes are built on, but trails are not able to traverse that. There's no public access, things like that. So transferring this land into Salt Lake City's hands opens that up and prevents a future HOA from restricting that land in any way through fences or blocking off trails or anything like that.
There are a myriad of ways to convey land. This is a sale, right? You're selling it to.
Correct. Yeah.
But there are other ways that could be effectuated without a sale or Salt Lake Public Lands buying the property, correct? It could be a land trust, it could be.
Oh, yeah. It could be land trust. I mean, either way, it's a transfer of ownership, right, out of private hands into public hands. This happens to be done through a sale. We've looped in other organizations, Utah Open Lands and others, and discussed protective easements, but the property still remains in private hands in most of those cases. So the sales seem to be the best way to transfer ownership into Salt Lake City into public hands.
All right, thank you.
Looking for a motion if we're ready.
I'd like to make a motion. This is for PLN PCM 2024-01459. Based on the information presented and the discussion, I move that the commission approve this plan development application as recommended by staff.
I can second that.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Christensen and a second by Commissioner Vela. Any discussion to that motion? Okay, we'll vote. Let's see. Commissioner Rosenfield.
Yes.
Commissioner Barrett.
Yes.
Commissioner Leverett.
Yes.
Commissioner Scott.
Yes.
Commissioner Christensen.
Yes.
Commissioner Barry.
Yes.
Commissioner Vela.
Yes.
And I'll vote yes as well. So that's unanimous votes for the planned development.
I'd like to make another motion for PLN SUB 2024-01444. Based on the information presented and discussion, I move that the commission approve this preliminary subdivision application as recommended by staff.
And I can second that as well.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Christensen and a second by Commissioner Vela. Any action or discussion on that motion? Okay, we'll vote. Commissioner Barry.
Yes.
Commissioner Christensen.
Yes.
Commissioner Leverett.
Yes.
Commissioner Scott.
Yes.
Commissioner Barrett.
Yes.
Commissioner Rosenfield.
Yes.
Commissioner Vela.
Yes.
And I also vote yes. So those two pass unanimously. So that's great. Congratulations. I'm glad to see that project done because we've seen it a lot for a long time. So Thank you.
Madam Chair, can we take a break?
Yeah, let's take a break. So we'll take a 5-minute break. We'll come back at 7:31. again. We're on item number 6, local landmark site designation for Sampson and Altadena Apartments. If you'll introduce yourself and tell us about this application.
My name is Noah Elmore, and as you may have gathered, this is a petition for the designation of a local landmark site. This is a request by the Sampson Altadena Condominiums Homeowner Association to designate the Sampson and Altadena Apartments as a local landmark site. Staff is recommending the Planning Commission forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council. For reference, this request has already been before the Historic Landmark Commission at their July 10 meeting. The commission voted unanimously to forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council. The subject site is located at the southwest corner of the intersection of 300 South and 300 East. Sampson Apartments is to the north at 276 East, 300 South, while Altadena Apartments is to the south at 310 South, 300 East. The period of significance of the buildings is 1906 to 1945. This corresponds to the date of construction approximately to the year the Sampson family sold the property. The brick Sampson and Altadena apartments are early examples of apartment construction of the time, which saw the typical apartment block configured as a 3-story walk-up with 2 units on each floor flanking a central staircase. Designed by Auguste Rudin, the Sampson and Altadena apartment blocks represent high-style examples of neoclassical architecture in apartment block construction. The Sampson and Altadena apartments are 2 of 25 extant examples of such walk-up apartments built between 1903 and 1915, with twin apartment buildings being rare in general. Rudin's buildings have subsequently both been listed on the National Register since 2009. Particularly noteworthy elements include the deep porches and the neoclassical architectural ornamentation, with the brick and stone masonry of the buildings, which has been well preserved, especially when compared to similar extant apartment buildings from the period. The standards for the designation of a local landmark site are evaluated based on historic significance, historic integrity, eligibility on the National Register, and established planning policies. As discussed in the staff report, staff evaluated each criterion against the proposed designation. It is in staff's opinion that the proposed designation meets each standard. It was also found that the standards for a map amendment, which this includes, have been met. These are based on whether the proposal furthers adopted plans, policies, and the zoning ordinance. Additionally, it was found the proposal will have a minimum impact on surrounding properties. Staff is recommending the Planning Commission forward a recommendation to approve. And that's all I got.
Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have questions for staff right now? Clarifying questions? Thank you. Does the applicant want to make a presentation? You can come up, tell us your name, and you'll have 10 minutes. Great.
Okay, good evening. My name is Lauren Fincinella, and I'm a resident and homeowner of the Altadena apartment building, and I'm also a vice president on our HOA. Sitting next to me is Annie Ruth Isaacson, and she's our president of our HOA. And we just wanted to take you through a few aspects of our building in support of our application. Noah already discussed some of the significance and the criteria that our buildings meet. Again, architecturally, these are neoclassical or revival style buildings. They're sister buildings, 3.5 stories tall. The red face brick is kind of beautifully laid out here in a diamond pattern. And like Noah said, these have been exceptionally well preserved for the time period in which the buildings were made. Some more notes on our builder and masonry. August Sundin was a Swedish immigrant who came to the United States in 1882. He was listed as a bricklayer in Salt Lake City directories until the 1890s, and then was listed as a general contractor. Him and his wife owned the property before they sold it to Sampson, and Sampson obtained the permits to build the building, but he didn't list an architect or a builder, but based on Rudin's history and employment and interest in the property, it's likely that he was the builder. The other significant factors to our buildings is that Octavius and Anise Sampson were the original owners. They were respected members of the community and longtime building managers of the building. They are also members of the First Church of Jesus Christ Scientists in Salt Lake City. So this building here is located on 300 East, and it's just directly east of our buildings. And it was believed that the Sampsons built our buildings to help with the housing of the church. The Altadena building is also named after their daughter. Finally, the significance for the community. These apartment buildings reflect the time period in Salt Lake City where there was there was people moving from the rural areas to the capital in search of jobs and employment, and so these apartments were on the rise and important during that time. I'm now going to turn it over to Annie to talk about the preservation.
Okay, so in 1906, they built the building for $21,000, both buildings. We know between the time that Sampson sold the building and when before they became condominiums in 2005, there were several changes. They used to have an exterior elevator behind both buildings. They were removed. The first floor rear direct exits that used to go around the elevator were eliminated. The rear stairs were enclosed and kitchens were extended on all the top floor apartments. The bricks in the interior stairwell were painted. The exterior sandstone base was painted. The Sampson front sandstone stair was replaced, and 2 exterior walls were coated with brown film, which incidentally were damaging the brick. In 2006, they converted the buildings to condominiums and sold them. The buildings were listed on the Historic Registry in 2010. A reserve study was initiated. In 2016, they finalized the CC&Rs, Ways and Means, and they had a goal of protecting the long-term life of the building. Since then, between 2017 and 2025, we've invested almost $250,000 in restoring, maintaining, and repairing these buildings. So there was a lot of years where they didn't get the loving care that Otis Sampson put into them. Mind you, this translates to about $50,000 per full share owner, and these are middle class and lower middle class owners, so it's a very big investment, and it shows they really care about the buildings and we're in it for the long term. I just want to show you in the model, if you look down there, there's like a broken building. That's where we are now, half the building, and then our buildings are right. And this is just like a little breakaway, larger scale of our buildings. Do you guys have any questions for us?
Any clarifying questions from the commission or the applicants? No. Thank you. Okay, we're going to open the public hearing now for this item. If you haven't given a card yet, you can write one, or you can just wait in line for a second. We'll have Justin speak first, and then Travis, then Alex, then Cindy. So Justin, go up to the microphone and say your name and give us your comment. Are you here? Oh, Justin, you're up. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Justin Connie, and I just want to recommend them because of the endorsement that it takes to have stewardship of, well, let me catch my breath for a second. The stewardship of all their HOA members saying, yes, we want to continue to take care of this historical property. So I commend them for their efforts. It's very hard. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Travis. Tell us your whole name, and you'll have 2 minutes.
Hi, I'm Travis Starley. I'm representing the Central City Neighborhood Council.
Oh, you have 5 minutes then.
We're here today to strongly support the petition to designate the Sampson and Altadena apartments as historical landmarks. These two buildings, built in 1905 and designed by architect August Rudin, are beautiful examples of 20th century architecture. They reflect the classical revival style and were part of a wave of elegant 3-story apartment buildings built during that era. These aren't just old buildings, they're part of the neighborhood's identity and history. They help tell the story of Salt Lake City through homes people built and lived in over time. The apartments were originally built by Octavius and Eunice Sampson, English immigrants who were involved in the First Church of Christ scientists here in Salt Lake City. The Sampsons lived in the building themselves and also rented out units to members of their congregation. The buildings were thoughtfully designed and included upscale features, many of which are still intact today. They are a reflection of Salt Lake's immigrant roots and show how the city was changing during a time of rapid growth in the early 1900s. In 2010, these buildings were added to the National Register of Historic Places. That status recognizes their historical and architectural value, including the brick and sandstone facades, 3-story wooden balconies, and Tuscan columns. But national status doesn't fully protect them from being demolished or damaged. That's why we believe local historic designation is so important. It offers stronger, more practical protections at the city level, the kind that makes a real difference when it comes to preserving our historic buildings. One important protection that would come with local designation is a zoning rule that requires new buildings to step back at a 45-degree angle from the roof line of historic structures. This step back protects the buildings in 2 important ways. First, it reduces the risk of damage from construction vibrations, which can be harmful to the original sandstone foundations if heavy machinery is used too close. Second, it protects the views, sunlight, and prominence of these buildings so they're not overwhelmed or hidden by much taller new development. The current owners of the Sampson and Altadena apartments have said they clearly want to preserve these buildings. They're not looking to tear them down or redevelop the site. That makes this the perfect time and the right team to move forward with this local designation. These apartments are part of what makes Salt Lake City special. Local designation is the city's best tool to make sure we don't lose important buildings like these to demolition or insensitive development. It gives us the chance to grow responsibly while holding on to the places that remind us of who we are and where we came from. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Alex, and then Cindy.
I'm going to speak for Alex. He has suffered a stroke, so he has a hard time speaking. Sorry. My name is Alex Harmery. I live at 310 South 300 East in the historic Altadena building. I was a mountain climber in Utah and had a stroke in 2016. I know many of you have seen me here before, as I'm passionate about where I live and protecting it. Please, as you have in the past, read my comments posted on these boards. When I first moved into the Altadena, there was only a center rail in the stairwell, which was not sufficient for me to go up and down the stairs with my disability. The HOA contacted Amber Anderson at the State of Utah Historic Office and got approval for a temporary handicap rail to be installed immediately and to work towards a matching rail to the 1906 center rail to go along with the walls in the staircase. The side rails were milled to match. They did not only replace the temporary rail, but mounted matching rails on each side wall of the stairwell in both buildings so that any resident, current or future, would be able to go to any floor with or without a walking disability. The HOA took care of me, and they took care of the buildings with care and sensitivity and detail. The HOA is proud to be on the National Registry of Historic Places. Now the newly approved zoning code includes unique protections for historic landmark buildings. However, not for those on the National Registry of Historic Places. Those protections are only for standalone SLC locally accredited landmarks. As an HOA, we voted on whether to apply to also be on the local historic landmarks. I don't know what you experience is with building consensus with large groups of people, but we voted unanimously to agree to pursue the local landmark accreditation. This says a lot about our community. We love our building, and it shows. As a landmark building, well, right? Maybe not. As a landmark building, our foundations will be better protected with the new code. Because of those sandstone foundations, I think there was an illustration of it. I strongly support the Sampson Altadena application to be a local landmark building to protect our foundations, to protect our sunlight, to protect our history from 1906, so that it is here as a gift to the street in 2106. Please approve the Sampson Altadena Condominiums Homeowner Association petition to designate the Sampson and Altadena Apartments as a local landmark site. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Cindy, and then if you want to speak after that, you can go up to the microphone and state your name and make your comment.
My name is Cindy Cromer, and my relationship to the Sampson Altadena Apartments spans 50 years, 2/3 of my life. And the connections are absolutely improbable. Those connections started when my boyfriend lived on the second floor of the Sampson on the east side. He was there because my future father-in-law owned the buildings. Forward to 1980, when the Avalon Apartments next door burned, but the deadly fire did not reach the Sampson and Altadena. Another 10 years, and the city's planner, Bill Schwab, nominated both buildings to the National Register. The owner at that time opted out. It would be another 20 years before the owners of the buildings, now condominiums, would apply to the National Register. Through those 50 years and the previous 70 years, the buildings avoided demolition, avoided vinyl siding, and avoided the enclosures of the porch. Almost all of the windows in these two buildings are original from 1906. The buildings are, as the staff report indicates, worthy of designation on the city register. Their condition is a tribute to the early stewardship by the Sampson family, the commitment of the current owners of the condominiums, and a great deal of good luck in between. In case you're thinking that the city would be better served by higher density at this location, I want to point out that the owners have applied for this designation. And these condominiums are consistent with the city's emphasis on opportunities for ownership and on maintaining the economic diversity of the people who live in Salt Lake. With their early 20th century elegance, they provide a way for people to own in the core of Salt Lake at a modest price. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else want to speak on this application? You can just go to the microphone and say your name and tell us what you think. Do we have any new emails? Okay, thank you. I'm going to close the public hearing on this application. What we can do about this action today, it's a legislative item, so we can give a positive recommendation to Salt Lake City Council, who will make the ultimate decision. We could give a negative recommendation to Salt Lake City Council, or we could continue this item to a date in the future. So now it's time for the Planning Commission to discuss or make a motion. Great.
Based on the information presented and the discussion, I move that the commission forward a recommendation to approve the designation request to the city council.
I'll second.
Second.
I heard Commissioner Berry first. So we have a motion by Commissioner Vela and a second by Commissioner Berry. Let's have any discussion? Okay, we're going to have Commissioner Rosenfield vote first.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Vela.
Yes.
Vela, I'm sorry. Commissioner Berry.
Yes.
Commissioner Scott.
Yes.
Commissioner Christensen.
Yes.
Commissioner Barrett.
Yes.
Commissioner Leverett.
Yes.
And I will also vote yes. So that's unanimous to send a positive recommendation to the Salt Lake City Council. So you have one more hearing on that. I appreciate you taking time to come to our hearing tonight. Beautiful buildings. Good luck.
Congratulations, y'all.
Yeah. The models were impressive too.
I've seen models from this group before. It's like, right? Yeah. 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 This group thinks in 3D. Thank you. Have a nice evening. Okay, we have one more item on our agenda. It's item number 7, street vacation request at approximately 6500 West and I-80 eastbound freeway.
Okay, there we go. Thank you. My name's Andy Hulka. I'll be your planner for this item. Happy Pioneer Day Eve. We'll try to make this one quick for you. So, as mentioned, we're looking at a street vacation, actually multiple street vacation requests at approximately 6500 West I-80. It's in the M1 Light Manufacturing District in Council District 2. As you can see on the map, this is a single parcel, but it's bisected by 5 different remnant portions of right-of-way. The request is to vacate those sections so that they can be added to the parcel. Our recommendation tonight is that you recommend approval to the City Council. A little bit of background. The land was subdivided over 100 years ago in 1911 under the Maplewood Addition subdivision plat. As you can see, the land was divided into blocks with public rights-of-way to provide street access to those blocks, but the land was never developed. So in 1986, when I-80 was built, it cut right through the middle of that subdivision and left a couple remnant pieces on either side of the freeway, permanently blocking those rights-of-way from future use. That brings us to today. I've got a street view image from the freeway. You can kind of see the approximate area of the existing parcel, which includes the right-of-way areas that are requested to be vacated. Whenever we review a request like this, we assess the master plans to make sure that it's consistent with the city's long-term view. In this case, this is in the northwest quadrant. That plan does include several policy recommendations about promoting short line rail and ensuring that the rail lines do not conflict with streets. So by making sure that there's no street right-of-way, we ensure that there are no street conflicts with that railroad. We also always, on a street vacation, review the major streets plan. In this case, you can see I've clipped a section there, and you can see on the screen the red area is approximately where the subject property is. We don't have any future planned streets called out on that plan. It's just a railroad served parcel. And there we go. The commission has seen a few vacation requests recently, but just as a reminder, the state code gives us the authority to review these standards. We have to ensure that there's a good cause for the request and that the public will not be materially injured. And then we do review street vacations using the alley vacation standards. That code is in the process of being updated, which you'll see soon, but for now we review it according to those standards. One of the requirements is that there has to be a policy consideration. In this case, the applicant's pointing to lack of use. We've got a photo from the site standing right about where the rail line is, looking towards the freeway, and as you can see, it's not in use as a roadway. And again, because of the existence of the freeway and the railroad lines, there's no way for a roadway to be built without conflicts. A couple notes I want to make. As we reviewed, the department comments had a few that came up, a few items that came up, which is why we're recommending some conditions. So public utilities, while we noted there are no existing utilities there, they did indicate that an easement would be required for future utility connections through the northwest quadrant. So we are recommending a condition to ensure that there's an easement in favor of Salt Lake City for utility use of the property. And then engineering, as you may remember, they're generally not in support of any request to vacate right-of-way. There weren't any specific notes about this exact request other than a comment about the address. As you noted, the address is off of I-80. There's no access off the freeway, and so they prefer to have the access reflect, or the address reflect where the access is coming from. And so we're recommending a condition to require consolidation of those parcels if vacated. Lot consolidations require engineering approval, and at that point, a new address could be assigned. So with that, we are recommending approval, or that you forward a recommendation of approval to the City Council with those two conditions as outlined. I'm happy to answer any questions, and we do have an applicant representative today.
Thank you. Any clarifying questions for staff right now? Okay, let's have the applicant make a presentation if you want to. You can have up to 10 minutes. Tell us your name.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Ashley Peck. I'm with Holland and Hart, and we represent the applicant Salt Lake, Garfield, and Western Railway. I actually don't have a presentation. We're here to answer any questions that you have. I think that the staff report does a thorough job documenting the details here and the adherence to the code, and we respectfully request your favorable approval.
Thank you. You said your name's Ashley Peck?
Yes.
Okay, before the mic turned on, so
yes, sorry.
I want to clarify that. Okay, any questions for the applicant at this time? Clarifying questions? Okay, we're going to open the public hearing. If anyone wishes to speak about this item, please step up to the microphone. Any new emails? Okay, so I'll close the public hearing on this item. It's a legislative item, so we can make a positive recommendation to Salt Lake City Council where the decision is ultimately made, or we can send a negative recommendation, or we can continue this until another day. So what do you want to do?
I'd like to make a motion.
Great.
I actually have a couple questions.
Oh, go ahead.
If I may. So this is relatively close to the area that is planned to link in the freeway to the Mountain View corridor. Are there expected to be any conflict when that occurs?
So you can see on the major street plan in the bottom corner, there's a little yellow mark indicating the approximate planned future location for Mountain View Corridor. So when you look on the map, you can see the right-of-way where it's planned in the future, and it's not, it would not conflict with this subject property that we're looking at. It would cut through the adjacent property to the east. But there are no plans that I'm aware of, at least it's not to the point where there are any construction plans or specific drawings available. And so all I can say is that it would have to go through the typical approval processes, which includes any requirements about conflict with the trains. So that process is all still yet to take place.
Understood. And by my reading of the vacation ordinances, only vacations in single-family residential areas can be disposed of directly to the surrounding property owner, correct? So would the applicant have to purchase the vacated parcels?
That's correct, yes.
Great, thank you.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion. This is for PLN PCM 2025-00432. Based on the information presented and discussion, I move that the commission recommends that the City Council adopt this request with the following conditions. 1, the property owner shall reserve an easement on the subject property in favor of Salt Lake City for the use, access, and maintenance of utilities and related facilities as approved by Salt Lake City Department of Public Utilities. 2, the vacated portions of right-of-way shall be consolidated through a parcel consolidation application.
I can second that.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Christensen and a second by Commissioner Vela. Any discussion or action on that motion? Okay, we'll vote. Commissioner Leverett.
Yes.
Commissioner Scott.
Yes.
Commissioner Barry.
Yes.
Commissioner Christensen.
Yes.
Commissioner Barrett.
Yes.
Commissioner Vela.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Rosenfield.
Abstain.
Can you state your reason for abstaining?
I don't feel confident enough either way is that a permissible reason to abstain, or do I have to vote no?
I'm going to ask the attorney, is that a good reason to abstain? Is that an acceptable reason to abstain from voting?
Can I have you repeat that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm abstaining because I do not feel confident enough in either direction to support or oppose the disposal of this property.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I will vote yes. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yes votes, 1 abstain. So we'll send a positive recommendation for the street vacation to the Salt Lake City Council. And that's the end of our agenda. So happy Pioneer Day tomorrow. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much.